Hey, what's up, guys? So today I'm going to be doing a tier list covering decks that haven't gotten that much love recently, right? I feel like these are the type of decks that have been typically ignored or not as discussed just because, they aren't as powerful as the meta decks, in the game, right? Like, obviously we know that, like, if you guys watch my meta tier list video, you would realize that Fiendsmith as an engine has been dominating I guess like the slots of a lot of top tier decks in the game at the moment. But how about some of like the underlove or like the decks that haven't gotten as much loved, and what I guess I think of them, right? But of course, if you guys want to support the channel, don't forget to subscribe. And of course, if you want to maybe work on these rogue archetypes with me, I would love to work on them with you. If you guys subscribe to my coaching as well as the classroom, which is a dedicated Discord / Patreon for people who are interested at improving at the game. There's a bunch of different tiers, bunch of different options for you to get involved, right? If you just want to support the channel, if you're interested in some of the more exclusive deck lists, right? I even posted a bunch of like world celebration lists that I guess been cooking up, right? Like what decks I would play if I went to worlds, for example. Posted a bunch of Snake Eyes lists, Despia lists out there for you guys. And then, of course, if you guys want to work with me one-on-one, I'm also would be happy to do that as well, right? So, and of course, guys, don't forget to check out Supreme Pro. You can use pack 10 for 10% off at txs1.com, and you can get 10% off all of your TZ, I guess, needs. But yeah, in the meantime, guys, let's jump right into the video, and let's get started. So I have 4 tiers here. I have the first tier, which is might become meta, in the sense that, like, I think we might start seeing more of this deck, maybe like the regional level. Some people might even take it to the YCS. Sleeper picks are decks that I think have a lot of potential. I think this is a rogue deck that is very viable. Like, I would actually feel comfortable taking it to a regional and not be like, I guess, like, surprised or like, if I, like, did okay, right? Like, I think these decks are like the type of decks that could actually be like strong enough to compete. They might not be the strongest decks, but I think that the cards have a lot of stuff. Like, they have a lot of good cards going for them. Third is like rogue for a reason, in the sense that, like, they're good, but they're just not quite there yet. Like, I think they're rogue for a reason, right? So it's like, obviously there's like just limitations to like certain strategies, so I'll put it there. And then D, which is, it just needs more support, man. Like, the cards are just so shit, and like, I think there's a lot of potential to hopefully maybe get them to that next step, with new sets. But of course, guys, we have seen that Konami have been giving old archetypes, previous archetypes, a lot of love. So if you guys got some of these deck cores yourself, definitely hold on to them, right? There's a lot of potential for Konami to snap up a finger one day, make them really good. So I would definitely consider holding on to these. But all right, let's get started with the first deck, Marincess. I think Marincess is a really, really good deck. It was a deck that was actually quite sleeper during, I believe, the NAWCQ of 2022. I remember watching Herman playing that deck, and it just looked so insane. A bunch of one-card combos, like tower-type monsters, just really, really good mid-range type strategy. I would say that it is a sleeper pick in the sense that I don't think the deck will see more representation anytime soon. But if, let's say, Bestials become really popular, right, the Marincess deck has a really good matchup, right, into Bestial-based hand traps. The fact that it is a water-based archetype makes it not as susceptible to like Bestials in the format, and I believe the deck is quite good into breakers, because you have like the Marincess wave that can be activated from the hand, so you can play around Lightning Storm, right? You can make the tower sites monsters with Crystal Heart, so like people don't play Kaiju, so that stuff is really, really hard to out. So yeah, I think it can be decent. Vanadium, I think this is also a really good sleeper pick. I think there's a lot of potential to maybe play like a 60 card Vanadium Grass Pile, because you can summon Visceral out by like putting the materials back from the grave back into the deck. Well, and even if you decide to play like the regular Vanadium deck, obviously you don't have access to Bear anymore, so the deck is like a little bit weaker. But I think like you can play, like, maybe there's some like potential there with like tier limit cards, or like maybe there's something that I'm missing. But I do think this deck could be like relevant at some point. But it is so rogue. Maybe it's rogue for a reason. I guess. I think losing Baron just puts it in the rogue for a reason category. Dynamorphia, I would say it's rogue for a reason. I think there's like better trap decks you could kind of play. But to be honest, some of the trap cards Dynamorphia plays are kind of broken. So I don't know. I kind of want to move it up to the sleeper pick. Just because like I think like it has access to like the counter, like the Solemn Strike now. A lot of the cards are kind of hard to interact with. But if it depends. If people play Breakers to out like, you know, the Rexstrom, then maybe it's kind of difficult. But you do have, of course, like a bunch of like counter traps to like maybe stop the Breakers. Could be cool. I think it could be sleeper pick. Like I can see myself playing it and not doing too bad. I think Raid Raptors are also like a really good sleeper pick. I think it's pretty much full power. And of course it puts up like the towers. I think if the Zed goes first and does the towers combo, you pretty much like insta win. I don't think there's like any outs. I think you need to like get stream mode when they put like the double like towers. So I think it's sleeper pick in the sense of like if a lot of people play Breakers, Raid Raptor might be good, like really good deck, right? Who cares if you open Dark Ruler and like all these like crazy blowouts, droplets, etc. type cards if you have like a bunch of boss monsters, tower monsters that can be outed. So I'll put it right here. Orcus, I think it's probably rogue for a reason. I think it needs more support. I think like it needs more support, or like maybe it's rogue for a reason. I feel like it just doesn't have enough for its end board at the moment. But it is like a really strong rogue deck still. Like obviously like the Orcus cards are really high quality. But yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like I would put it like in this category for now. But Armor Knight did go to 3, so you do have like a lot more starters now. Could be good. Let's say it's still rogue though. Drytron might become meta. I think that the fact that Orange Light is at 3, you have Ben 10 at 3. Drytron is very close to full power. Like the only thing it doesn't really have is I guess like Beatrice. But it does have access to Ava as well, right? So like I do think that Drytron is something that is really scary. It has like this new like ritual monster that has like 5k attack and it's a monster negate as well. So I do think that there is a lot of potential with the Drytron deck. And they're putting out new Drytron monsters, like the field spell with the teleport is not a 1-card combo, stuff like that. So I think Drytron, out of like the rogue decks we have at the moment, are really good. Goaty's a really sick deck. I remember I tried to pick it up and learn a little bit about it. It's a deck that can utilize Shifter. It's a deck that can play with runic cards. You can play it a bunch of different ways, but I think like its interruption is like literally a, you know, an effect that banishes every single card on the field. So I mean those effects are just broken. And I think Goaty's like cool, the fact that it can play under Shifter really well, right? So that I think that's a huge plus. Thunder Dragon is I think also gonna be a pretty strong deck in terms of like it is a sleeper pick. Colossus at 2 is really good. I think the thing that we need to figure out is how to build the pure Thunder deck. Obviously, you're going to want to play the Allures. You're going to want to play the Shifters. But how do you build the deck, I think, is the difficult part. But I do think that Colossus at 2 is really busted. The only thing you need to figure out is how to beat the Nibru. So I think that's going to be kind of like a challenge. But I do think that like from a card quality perspective, the Thunder Dragon cards are really good. The Chaos cards are really strong. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think a 60-card Lifesworn deck could be really strong with Grass back into the game. I think Minerva milling a bunch of cards is just absurd. Obviously, you can play like Lifesworn tier elements as well. You can also try to like maybe play the Lifesworn is a fusion monster. And the Lifesworn deck is also really cool because it makes a bunch of synchros. It can make also like the Vanadium one that serves as a counter trap. So you get on a pretty like devastating board in my opinion. And yeah, I just think the cards are just super high quality. All the new cards are like really strong. You can make a bunch of rank 4s, synchro 8s, synchro 12s. It kind of reminds me of Centurion, but a little bit more high roll, right? So I think the fact that it has the ability to high roll is also really neat, right? Because I think going second to some of these formats, sometimes the ability to high roll your opponent is just like really strong. I think Ice Spear Runic is really good. I don't think it's as good as like obviously Whitewood Runic, but guys, if you've read that like big Trishula Ice Spear synchro, I do not know how you can out that. Like I feel like in Branded it's like a little bit easier to out it, right? With like, you know, like loss and like banishing under loss so they can't trigger it. But dude, it literally summons like an Ice Spear extra deck monster, like, and I believe it's treated as a synchro summon, so you can actually resolve like Trishula even I think on your opponent's turn, right? If I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Ice Spear are really good cards. I think they have like the Verunic version is like really strong. I would not be surprised to see like people trying out Ice Spear Runic, maybe to like play around Bistools. Runic, Live Twin, Evil Twin. Obviously, it's still a sleeper pick. I think like it's just kind of been losing a lot of popularity. It's still decent. You definitely could still play it. I don't think there's a benefit to playing this version of the deck, I feel like, compared to like another version, but you're right. But it's still fine. Earth Machine, I would say it's rogue for a reason. I think like just drawing cards and hanging on like a very like super mid-range board isn't just good enough, unfortunately. I think this deck could become meta at some point, in the sense that I don't think it'll become like meta as like tier 1, but I think it can like creep up into like more of a real deck just because of how strong Protoss is, to be quite honest. We have Dino DNA. I think this deck, I don't know, with Gamma getting reduced, I would put it as a sleeper. Deck can still crack a lot of boards going second. Pancratops at 2. Could be kind of cool, like create some crazy combos you can do. But I think this deck is, and this deck is like fine, I guess. It's just like has a couple like weaknesses and bricks, but I don't know, it should be fine. I think Miss is still at 1, right? If I'm not mistaken, so I don't know. Maybe if it gets a little bit better. Magic Spectre, I think, recently came back. I would be interested to see like a pure Magic Spectre deck. I don't know much about it, so I don't know if I'm putting this in the right category, but I think with Kieran at 3, it's actually like insanely relevant. Just because of the fact that like it's a non-targeting bounce, it reminds me a lot about DPE. And the fact that it can't be destroyed by card effects or targeted, I think is just like too broken. And you can do it like every single turn. The Magic Spectres can play like a bunch of like really good utility, I guess, tech cards in the form of Magic Spectre engine spells and traps. Could be fire. I think Volcanic FTK with Snake Eye cards are still a viable strategy. You could definitely still play it with like, you know, onces are still maxed out. The Witch-It, like the Bonfires kind of got hit a little bit, but I mean, you also have like Grass. Like, I mean, I think that like the Volcanic pile decks are still like definitely a fearsome strategy to even consider. Fenray Horus, I think, is probably gonna be a sleeper pick. I think it's like fine. Has some like really nice cards. Can grind quite a little bit. The Fog Blades are just like really, really good. I think it's not bad. Yeah, I'll put in a sleeper. Madolche just recently got more support, and this has been a rogue deck that I've been meaning to kind of like try a little bit more. Always been a fan of like the Angelis and like, you know, the Pudding Cess and the Chateaus. I think like Madolche is a really cool strategy that can manipulate the graveyard. They got the new XYZ that is basically tiramisu on your opponent's turn, right? So I think like shuffling type interactions are like really strong. And it has like a trap card that can play around breakers pretty well. That I can play around Nib by holding the I think the rank 4 effect. So could be fire. Goblin Bikers. I think this deck I played against at locals. You guys watched my local VODs. You guys saw that I played against someone playing the Fiendsmith Goblin Biker deck, and it looked really scary, to be quite honest. That deck is scary. I think that like it has a lot of potential. I think it needs a little bit more support, but from just card quality wise, I think a lot of the Icebreaker, the Goblin Biker cards are just really good. I think Salmon Grid is a sleeper pick. I do think that like the only benefit of this deck is that it's a fire deck that doesn't utilize some of the most broken fire support in the game, like, you know, Wanteds and Bonfires and all that good stuff. So I'm more hesitant to put in like might become meta. Vanquish Soul might become fire again. I would say I want to put it in the need more support deck because I think this deck just needs a little bit more support to like get it out of like rogue. But I do think that when it does get like another VS card, I think it'll be like absolutely insane. I think Pearly is a really solid deck in terms of like the rogue options, just like really, really strong still. Like nothing, it didn't really get hit at all. It can play under Shifter really well. Noir is just like a threat, man. It's just a menace. So it's really crazy. We have Hero. So Hero is probably one of the stronger rogue decks. Then a lot of people underlook this deck. I know I make fun of it for a joke, but Hero overall is just like really solid. And I think the Evil Hero cards coming out very soon is gonna be insane as well. Melodius is going to be one of the strongest, I guess, rogue decks in the meta game. The only issue with Melodius is the fact that it just doesn't play well into breakers, but it does have a really insane edge in the fact that it can play Orange Lights and Dominus Purge. Hand traps just cannot be crossed out in the meta game, and just hand traps are just like insane blowouts. So I would put Infernoids that might become meta. I know like Infernoids have a history of being breaks, but I think in the grass deck, and if you guys are interested in signing up for the classroom, you can check the description box below. I actually made an Infernoids list that I'm thinking about taking to like the Philly regional. So If you guys are interested in trying to get a sneak peek at the list that I'm playing, definitely go check that out. I think this deck does have a lot of potential. It could be like really insane. Can utilize all the broken cards in the game. You can use Fiendsmith at the Snake Eye Ash engine. You can use Witches. And you can even like do like combos where you handle your opponent with Tierra, or you can go for like a really massive board, right? So the fact that you can like have I guess Void Feast set means you can play around Breakers. Your opponent activates Dark Ruler, okay? Void Feast on res, right? So really cool deck. Sprite Fog is probably one of like the strongest rogue decks as well. I think Toad is nothing to laugh at, especially when like the Ice Barrier Frog deck. So anything on Toad is like really good. You get on multiple Toads with the trap as well. And the Sprite deck is notoriously hard to hand trap. Obviously, losing Elf is like really big deal. So I think that's like the only concern. But yeah, I would say Mimikul is like, man, I want to say it needs more support. I think the deck is just really strong. I really want to see it get another wave of support. And if it does, man, this shit is gonna go all the way up to the meta. Kashtira, I think it's sleeper. I think it would be like good. Like it's one of the stronger rogue decks because you can play Shifter and a bunch of like just good hand traps overall. So I'll put it there. Flooneries, obviously one of the better Shifter decks. Can play around, I think, the Yugioh board pretty well. So might be a consideration, to be quite honest. If the elements, I think this deck is kind of similar to Lightsworn. Super sacky deck. A lot of potential. Could definitely just make like a crazy board off grass. You can definitely play Tierman Lightsworn as well. So I think there's some ability to maybe investigate a little bit there. I think you can play like a Bestial Control hand trap deck, not even like an actual Dragon Link deck, but like literally like Bestial Control with like 20 hand traps, 22 hand traps, and I think that could be like solid as well. And then Millennium, I think this deck needs more support. The deck is really nice, but I think that while the cards are super high quality, I just haven't found the right deck to use them in yet. And it feels that deck is more of a deck to be utilized with other stuff rather than like a standalone. But who knows? Maybe it does is able to stand on his own 2 legs after it does get some more support. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the tier list. Let me know what your thoughts are below. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.